Welcome back once again, everybody. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome back to another installment of Jolly Green's Winter Weight Loss Wonderland. I gotta... honestly, when you pick him up in this configuration, it's hard not to grunt a little bit because the Dash 6 are still in place. And I forgot how much weight we're already picking up. That thing kicks on... The leakage amount we've kind of isolated to be, it's about 6 hours. It leaks out enough to get down below 90 psi. It takes about 6 hours to get there. There's an airline, right? Can I pull it into frame? No, I gotta do this. There's an airline right behind me. It's very loud. There's an airline over on the other side of the wall. There's an airline over there. There's an airline over in the far corner. There's like 300 feet of airline in here. My theory is that it's just aggregate leakage from how many quick disconnects are in here, which means it's easily remedied with our good friend Cash Money, where I just buy a bunch of quick disconnects and replace all of the male and female quick disconnects, which at today's pricing is really kind of something I don't want to do. It'd be like $200 worth of fittings. I've done an unofficial kind of semi-off the record cost analysis on that, and I don't think that thing consumes enough electricity in 2 years to offset that. In 20 years to offset that cost. It runs for like a minute. No, so it runs for 3 minutes a day. Oh no! Don't make me get too deep into the weeds. We've got it. This is the number we didn't get because wheel tire is a thing, right? We didn't get it all put together. We got to get the postal scale because this goes up to 75 pounds. 8 pounds 15. Does this thing do grams? No. So we're gonna fudge it right here because we're never gonna see this number again. 8 pounds 15 ounces is close enough as to approximately be 4,076 grams. So that is the amount of weight that we are attempting to manipulate, right? We're changing out the rails. Here's what happened. I don't think that's right. We're changing out the rails. We're changing out a whole lot of things. And yes. Before anyone asks, yes, I have considered this. The amount of weight that is going to be removed, the amount of parts that are going to be removed, is effectively almost going to equal a Jolly Green. So, like, full fenders, bumpers, I should have gotten a bin. Now I fully recognize this bin isn't, this bin's not going to hold even most of it. But I got to thinking, how much is remaining? So I will procure a larger bin because I want to put as much of Jolly Green as possible into a single bin. Is that bumper bent? Yes, it is. We need to get it backdropped just right. There it is. That's solid aluminum, everybody. And it didn't even bend where the hole is. It bent kind of where that cutout is. That's still ultimately usable. Also, what a ridiculous process. That's 4 ounces. That's a quarter of a pound. So it's not going to be difficult to shed that little bit of weight. No, I say this a lot, and I want to make sure that it's understood. I say this a lot with regard to builds around here where I'll say, oh, we made no effort towards weight reduction or weight loss. That is never more true than Jolly Green. Well, I fabricated this whole piece. Those are turned out of Delrin. So we will make our very best effort, and this one has come completely loose. We will make our very best effort to repurpose or reuse as many pieces as we possibly can. Also, there's already a part of Jolly Green living inside Sandy because, am I pulling the right one? Yeah. I want the whole mount out. That's a good one. That's in good shape. That's in good shape. When I was doing the build series on Sandy, I needed a front battery mount because I had neglected to order one. I was like, oh, you've got one of those in the drawer. I did find one later on, but I said, oh, you've got one of those in the drawer. Don't worry about it. Couldn't find it at the time. Sorted through all the bins sometime later, so I made this one out of a little scrap of ABS and then gave the stock one to Sandy because it would seem weird. I'd be like, go out and buy one, but buy the real one. Don't buy this one that I made out of nothing in about 5 minutes. So, it's $5. It's $5. I wonder, the wondering that's happening right now is, can I? No. Will the front bumper be heavier than the back bumper? I gotta say, yeah. Honestly, if I had wanted to leave well enough alone, I could have just trimmed the body down. Removed the front and rear bumpers. And Bob's your uncle. Oh, goodness. 5.5. So we're already over half a pound. Got to keep things like this though, because what if I need something like that in the future for? Yes, I have no idea what for, but what if I do? What if I do? This is the side that has the Desert Lizard in desperate need of a rebuild, and we'll definitely do that. But what we have to do is we have to remove the shocks. And then there's going to be an additional intermediate step here. There is a shock that has been in service for a good long while. And none of that is oil. That's just dust. Not dust. That is soil that has been pulverized into powder. Because we're going to have to do something here. And it's going to require graph paper. This is the guy. This is the guy. Let me see if I can get him in. So this is what a shock that has given up its sweet juices looks like. Yeah, completely empty right there. Maybe busted the seal. That is one that we cannot just huck it into the bin. So we at least wipe it off a little bit, then we can huck it in the bin. What we need to do is we need to make sure, oh, this is beauty. This is beauty. I need other hardware. This is a little bit of fact finding, a little bit of getting things done. He has to be stripped down all the way. He has to be stripped down all the way. But we can't start doing things like removing axles because there's an intermediate step here. You are deep inside the intermediate step. There's an intermediate step in which we're basically going to copy down. No leakage or loss in this one either. It just wipes off. And if you want to know if it's grease or not, you go like that. Oh, it's gone. It looks like just the 1 out of 6 didn't fare remarkably well. I am kind of pre-estimating where things are going to get difficult on us. We're changing out the gearbox because we desperately need that sweet gear reduction. I have Cobra Fable mock assembled. Yeah, once again. Yep. And then we go No oil there. Desert lizards, man. Do desert lizards get a bad rap? 1,000% desert lizards get a bad rap. You've seen the angry caterpillar get driven around here in the past. We don't do it nice around here. So these desert lizards have done remarkably well, and were assembled just the once. Wow. Look at that. And there would be a little fudge donut right there at the bottom if this thing leaked at all. But it doesn't. That's just soil pulverization, Jolly Green style. I'm so on board for this. It happens, perhaps, let's be honest, perhaps not often enough. That we become complacent. Also, we were mounted here and here just purely out of laziness, because tipping them forward would result in interference by the Rocklight guys, like right in the way. We're probably not gonna worry about that in the future. That's already heavy. I take the shocks off. We don't have to worry about the shocks going back on. I'll get to that. I'll get to that in just here in a short moment. What we need to do is I need to get into here where I can see a bit better. So the first bits of fabricated goodness need to come off. Classic. Right into my keyboard. Literally fell right in between the keys of the keyboard. Not, honestly, not as bad as one would expect from how long this guy has been doing what he does. About 2 years now since we converted a TRX4 into a TRX6. Skid looks remarkably okay for something that just gets dragged across rocks all day. Pumpkins look pretty good. We have minimal wear on the rails. Honestly, I just saw it. I get to now do something that I'm super looking forward to. And by looking forward to, I mean not looking forward to. What we're going to do, I'll give you an idea of what's about to happen. I don't want to go through the whole hullabaloo of making mock rails. We're not going dramatically LCG. I don't feel the need to mess with much. This is sort of, think of it as Hardline 6. If you're familiar with the Hardline chassis that I Cobra fabled up for the VS410, it's basically same geometry, no change in the skid angle. It's just there to give you shock mounting positions. It's very effective. It's really very effective. So that is what I want to kind of do with this. I don't want to mess too much, well, by too much I mean at all, with Traxxas suspension geometry. I've never once thought, oh, that doesn't work right. What I have thought is, my God, this thing is heavy. So I need a board. And by golly, if this doesn't look like it's perfect, it might not be perfect, but by golly, it does look perfect. We're gonna have to fire Susan here momentarily because she's gonna try to spin around too much. Oh, it's perfect. It is, guys. This could literally not have gone better. We're gonna write all over this. This is how things change in plan. What I had was, I had my book of graph paper set out and I was ready to scribe. No, I say right now, we're going full woodworker right now. Full woodworker. If you are not a woodworker, woodworkers will seem absolutely mad to you. We leave the servo attached. We grab the woodworker's #1 tool. I am a fan of the Dixon Ticonderoga Black. It is a fantastic #2 pencil. We're going to make a mark right here for that axle. We're going to make a mark right here for this axle. And we're going to make a mark right here for the front axle. We're going to draw an arrow that points forward. That way, if we have to remove this off of the board and set it back down, remember when I said Susan was getting fired? So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this a bit so I can see it a little bit better. If it doesn't help your view, it's definitely going to help mine. I'm going to look at the angles of these rear axles. I'm going to look at the way that the rear geometry works. So we drop about at full, like if it would droop this far, which it won't, we're not going to run 110s. The rear wheelbase would actually shorten. It's limited by the little intermediate middle drive shaft right there, which at full squish up, that shaft collapses, and that basically there's not a lot of room there. That is what determines how much the rear is going to compress. Compression is actually limited by the drive shaft and nothing else. We are 130, call it 130 millimeters between the rear axles, and we are 325. It's very nearly the wheelbase of a Defender in between the two. 325. I should have written that with a marker. And what did I say this was? I already forgot. Somebody saying 130? Yeah, 130. 130. Which, based on my math, means 455 is our total wheelbase. Because I don't want to change links, but in our box of treats is a Stealth X, an unnecessary Stealth X. If you have a Stealth X and it doesn't have underdrive inside of it, you could just use a 3-gear, but I want to use a 3X because they are deliciously quiet, they're strong, and I have one. I don't need to order one. So, the span between link mounts on this skid is 38. I'm going to call it 38 millimeters. That's not important because it doesn't change. We're going to use an element skid because an element skid is going to hang down a fair bit less than a TRX4 skid, so that's going to be an improvement one way or the other. And the stock link separation is 40, I would say 43. There's a little parallax involved. Could be 42, 43 millimeters. So it is going to move the entire rear apparatus forward 4 millimeters, or it's going to move the whole front back about 4 millimeters. So we're going to go from 455 to about Fahrenheit 451. I am really actually kind of comfortable with a 451 millimeter wheelbase. There's just something fitting about it. And it won't mess with front end geometry at all. We just know panhard mount can't be this panhard mount because this panhard mount is part of this fender. So we're probably going to use a element. Maybe an element, maybe a Vanquish, maybe we have to fabricate something, maybe we try to incorporate one of the bolt-on panhard mounts specifically for TRX4. The critical part will be keeping the drag link and the panhard the length that they are now. Those are links I really don't want to mess with. I don't want to mess with the rest of these either. But what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to do a little motion here. This is how scientific the process gets in basically everything we do. We're going to raise up and we're going to look at about, let's say, 30 millimeters. And when we say 30 millimeters, we guesstimate to 30 millimeters. 2 pieces of cedar fence board are right about 30 millimeters thick. Gonna slap that under the skid. We're gonna see how that looks for levelness. Okay, we can kind of pivot it. Boom, there we go. Let's see. Let's see for sure. We'll use Victor. 3 1/4 right up there. 3 1/4 right there. If we measure a point here and a point here and they're level, we can consider the rest of it to be level. So that is actually, front links level due to their mounting position. And then we've got a little bit of, we're a little bit past. Now, this would put us at like 95s. So we're not going to have that much droop anyway, because our choices of shock are two. We have two choices. We have clean and service all of these desert lizards and put them back on, or combine those 6 desert lizards with these 2 desert lizards in this package, which need to be rebuilt, and then replace all 6 of them with these 2660s, which there are 3 packages of 2660s here. I will need to make or procure caps. I was going with this because the issue that I had previously with the desert lizards is, even at the softest springing, it's not super optimized for the rear end, because we have 4 tires and these are 130 millimeters apart. So the load spreading capacity of those 4 tires is such that the lightest spring you can find feels too stiff for these. So the issue so then what we're going to do is we're going to operate off of, honestly, let's work from a concept of full droop, which is about 1 more piece of fence board. So what happens when you're not looking is that LCG sneaks up on you and says that I'm part of the program here. So now we are at, got a little off the board. Okay, let's line back up. This is effectively, would be about the maximum amount that you would dare droop, because we're starting to get a real wonky angle on that rear drive shaft, and we don't want that drive shaft to get any more weird than that. So we have full compression up here, we have full droop down there. Knowing where the shock mounting holes are, and we're going to get those in a way that a woodworker would. How would a woodworker get that? He's going to take his buddy, the combination square, and he's going to hope against parallax, and he's going to say the shock hole that we used to use is right there. And then the shock hole that we used to use is right there. The key is close one eye. Just close one eye and hope for the best. So here is line for the front shock. Here's the line for the rear shock, because what we're going to do, when I said that we're going to attempt to retain geometry, what we're going, looks like a big beetle. We're going to try to retain geometry, which means I'm not going to lay the shocks way over. I am going to give us some options for laying the shock over, but I know that I have a shock that is around 85 millimeters. 2660s are 85 millimeter. 85 millimeter on a TRX4 Portal is a little bit of this. So there are the lines of my existing shock. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little measurement right here, as close as I possibly can. And again, I hope that the parallax doesn't get us. So at full droop right there, we are about 100 millimeters. I would say possibly, we're going to call it 98. So we're going to write somewhere where we can, 98 millimeters. 98 millimeters, okay? So we know. That means that this shock hole, which is in this line here and this line here, needs to move down 15 millimeters from the existing point that it is right now. That point is currently one dead 130 millimeters from the base that we're sitting on right now. So that is 115 millimeters from the board. It's pretty easy to do, right? And also what we're going to look at is we're going to look at when we do this, we go to full compression like that. Full compression, we're now, that's about 60. Let's call it 65 to the existing hole. So that would be about 50. The easiest way to do this is going to be to muddy the waters and open one of these up. And we have an unfilled, unbuilt shock. But that doesn't matter because this shock is going to provide us with the one thing we need, which is what is the length of this shock when fully compressed. Actually, this is a lot easier to work with than if the shock were completely built to begin with. So fully compressed, we're looking at about 62 millimeters. And at full extension, we are looking at the aforementioned 85. So at a 62 millimeter compression, this would be bolted. Actually, we could bolt those up. We bolt it up, and then at full squish. Oh no, that's real close to the existing hole. Probably about 5 millimeters below. So that would mean that at full collapse, if we go down 15 millimeters, we'll be about there. So what I want to look at is this is full droop. So that would be this shock right here like this. That is about 15 millimeters. Maybe a little bit less. This is the science, everybody. A lot of the work has been done for us. That is almost exactly, that is, oh, the lights just changed on the little dancing light in the background and absolutely blinded me because I was peeping through one eye. That is 13 millimeters at full extension. That is 13 millimeters below the hole. So we know our starting hole is indeed going to be 15 millimeters directly down, 115 millimeters up from the board. And then what we will do is, I don't need to tell you, right? You know what a shock tower looks like. If you want adjustability on a shock tower, you don't want 4 holes in a straight line. You want like a grid of holes. So there will be a grid of holes. There will also be a line of holes which do not change in any way. And those are, where's he at? Where you at? There we go. We've got the rear lower link mount right here. There is the lower link, which actually goes to the top of the axle. I know, right? And then here is the upper link, which goes in just above the lower link. I don't want to change those. I managed to manufacture and fabricate those to the exact length that they needed to be, and I don't want to have to make them again. At best, we'll clean them up a little bit so that they match all the clean new bits. So, all that said, the easiest way to kind of do this is we're going to go, this is more Woodworker nonsense right here. So we make sure we're flush against the board. We're going to go right there. We're going to get our pencil. We're going to go right there. Do a little mark like that. And then so that we don't lose it, we're going to throw it out. Then what I usually do is I rotate the board so it's easier to write on, but I write lower on that. And then we're going to do the exact same procedure for the upper. If you don't own a combination square, I will just assume that you're not into woodworking on any level, and I would highly recommend that you get one. Because if nothing else, if you find that you buy one of these and it doesn't fill you with a, what would something, Condorian, and doesn't fill you with a Condorian level of joy, you can just pull the ruler out. This is from a cheap Swanson one, like you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot, and then you have a very nice steel straight edge with a nice sharp edge on it. I do think, though, that once you get a combination square, because this side does 45s and this does 90s, you will be like, how did I live without a combination square? The only drawback that the Starrett, this is a very nice one. I've had it for, this is the 4th decade that I've owned this. The cheap one has metric on one side, and this one just instead says, let's go down to 64ths of an inch, because that's something that everyone uses nowadays. We've got lower and upper rear link mounts. We don't have to worry about where these link mounts are because they're on the skid, but that's not entirely true. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide this to right there. That's where we're going to eyeball it. And then we're going to go there and there. And that is where that is going to place. And now, the front measurements of the front geometry, we are going to mark down the panhard position because the panhard is in a nearly perfect position. So we are definitely, indeed, going to use the existing panhard placement, which is, it might as well be directly over the axle. Right there. That is the center of the panhard. Pan. This is how you do, because at some point, or this is how I do, because at some point I'm going to take something off and it's going to ruin the whole operation. I'm just going to start unbolting more things and then it's all going to go to oblivion. I hope that one thing has proved at least remotely valuable to you, and that is I start, when I'm doing a layout, right, I'm cribbing off of the homework that Traxxas already did here. But even when I'm laying out geo on something that I'm building up effectively from scratch, where I haven't determined link locations, link lengths, how much split I'm going to do on the links, when I haven't determined any of that stuff yet, I make an effort. So pretend you can't see this hole. Let's go back to camera. Pretend that this part isn't here. So now we're just building something normal, right? I like to start from full droop, because assessing what your shock geometry is going to be when you're at full droop is much easier than assessing what your potential full droop is going to be when building it with links level. Because basically what we want it to do, I build things in nearly full droop. Where I want my final shock position, and the shock position to me at this moment is unknown. That's why the tower is huge. I usually go with like a grid of 16 4x4 holes. I've done 5x4, 5x5, 4x4, 4x3. We will determine what they will be as we will come. What I have to do is determine where this link position comes out vertically. Because will it be in that exact spot right there? Or do we go ahead and we will determine the split. We will determine the split on just spinning around in a circle in one place, looking for this. We will determine, oh, we can just set him back down. We can set him back down. Sometimes it's a lot easier to just move things. Center to center. 15 millimeters. That's a number that I feel like I've heard before. 15 millimeters. Center to center. Nope. There. Yeah, I need to be writing more stuff down. Oh, 15 millimeters. And we'll do a little arrow that we'll forget what it means later. We're building a storyboard, is what we're building, and it's really going to help. Think of how little chassis there need be back here. We basically don't need anything past where that shock hole is. That whole part will be omitted. We don't need chassis back there. Oh, I do need to mention, I'm dropping plastic everywhere. So these will be on small springs, obviously. And I have lockers throughout here. In a minute, we're going to go ahead and tear it the rest of the way down after I make sure that I have full measurements out. And then we start pulling it apart, because I don't want to start pulling it apart and then have to put it back together. That wouldn't be great. And the way I do that is we do some interpretive math, which is, I know that this hole is currently, what did I say? See, this is why documenting this hurts me. It's at 130, yes, so it needs to be 115 millimeters up off the board. That's where that center of that shock hole needs to be. That's not really a problem. But what we need to determine is, when this is at full compression, we are still a good ways off of the rail. So does the rail need to be that high, or can we just pull the rail down 15 millimeters? Well, I think maybe, actually, probably yes. Unsurprisingly, it looks like we have a bit more travel. Yes, we have a bit more up travel in the center axle than we do in the rear axle. That makes sense, and I believe that that was something determined by folks who are smarter than myself. So I'm not going to mess with that. As I said, we're not going for full blast LCG here. We're going for an interpretation of the existing SCX, the existing TRX6 geometry. So, what am I forgetting? I can effectively operate from a position of all three starting shock mount positions will be on the same plane, because as Victor will show us, that's exactly what they are, just in a straight line. We're going for something a bit linear, and I have also recognized that there's every chance in the world that we don't just cut these rails once. We might have to cut these twice. That's an inevitability of laying things out thusly. What we do know is that it is unlikely that we'll have this big drop. It's probably going to be much easier to just come straight out from here. That's going to improve that clearance below anyway, as we're not really going for any kind of scale appearance on this thing when he's done. What we want him to be is real low to the ground and much lighter sprung-wise. We want to absolutely minimize sprung weight. As little sprung weight as we can possibly have, because I think that is the real key to turning a 6x into something that is just unstoppable. So we made our first maneuver into that by going to nice heavy wheels. We are going to further that. The shocks are going to lower us. We're already lowering everything. We're dropping everything from the shocks. All of the sprung weight is effectively moving down 15 millimeters. Ish. We are going to add a little bit of sprung weight. No, we're not. That's already an aluminum one in there. I bought a silver one because I think it'll look better with silver. There you go. He's got a bumper. I found a front bumper. Knowing that we're operating from a basis of an anvil. Look at that little titanium friend there. Let me tell you something. I just removed this from a plastic bag, and it doesn't feel like anything. So what did we say the front bumper was? There he is. Woo! Got it. In grams, 157. It will be replaced with this fellow right here, 20. The 20-gram front bumper. After I'm sure that my numbers are finalized and we start pulling plastics off, we can weigh a bit of the plastics and stuff. The electronic suite is remaining, save for, obviously, we're not sticking with the TRX4 gearbox with the 2-speed, and we are eliminating the lockers. Did I mention that I got lazy? I mentioned I got lazy, and I was like, it's $30 to buy 3 spools. We're just going to throw 3 spools in it. That weight savings is going to be something above negligible. This is a number I would like to scribble down. This is effectively the full gearbox. Just has to have a motor installed into it. And it comes in at, murder was the case that they gave me, 187 grams. Stealth X plus skid, 187 grams. I can basically guarantee you from where I'm standing right here that the TRX4 gearbox with the 2-speed assembly on it is going to be heavier. Now, weight is really going to move around. I don't think that the CG of the motor is going to move up appreciably from where it sits now, but it is going to move backwards. I also, by the same token, do not think that the fore to aft split on a TRX6 is exceptionally critical. Right? Doodlebugging is very difficult to do when you have this much wheel out at the back of the vehicle. So, before I get into more teardown, I have to make sure that I have everything scribbled down. Because remember, this is where the panhard is now, but it's going to move back around 4 millimeters. So we're going to build this back to front because I want to keep all of this as it is and just bolt it into place on new rails. So the rails are going to start off a bit chunky. The idea is leave material on because it's very difficult to cut back on. I can't, we're building it like a woodworker and not like a machinist or a metal worker. So we're going to operate from a basis of we're going to start with a lot and pare that down to a little. So the rails are going to come out. I will determine roughly what the total height needs to be from the top of the tower, because on this rig, if there's one thing I can guarantee you, it's this. The highest point on this vehicle of any component, well, is going to be the top of this Stealth X, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be up above the top of the towers. Maybe the top of the motor plate might be above. And it only has a gear cover on it in the eventuality that I have to run a gear cover. If I don't have to run a gear cover, do not think for a second that I won't come in here and cut the entire outer portion of the motor plate off, any part that we don't need. Because I'm not saying that we're going full lunatic lightweight, because, and this does segue nicely into the fact that we're going to start pulling this apart. An associate, a friend of the Canyon, was ordering a rear axle housing for his TRX4, and he ordered this one, and then he received it, and he goes, that doesn't look right, because this is the Racing axle housing for a TRX6. So he came by the Canyon, as he often does, and dropped this off and said, that's for you. He goes, I don't know what I was thinking. So once I had that in my hand, it was only a few steps to go to A-Main and order a TRX6 alloy middle axle housing from Racing and a Racing front axle housing. And this is the TRX4 TRX6 front axle housing. I did not opt to go for the... Does it have a plug? I don't think it does. I did not opt to go for the one with the incorporated C-hubs because we've already got, I think this is all Samex out at the front already. So that is going to be a really chunky front axle. So Racing axles, front to rear. Spools. Don't forget, where'd they go? We'll just use the sealed bag. 2660s, front to rear. If we can incorporate them, the Racing steel drive shafts for TRX6, just because they look really cool. We are moving the gear. It isn't so much about moving the gearbox as it is moving the outputs. The outputs on this are this far apart. This far is not a, that's a hyper-American system of measurement, is about 45 millimeters apart, give or take. The outputs on a TRX4 box are 55, 60. We should be able to get away with using the drive shafts. If we can't get away with the steel drive shafts, so be it. We know at least one will fit because we're not altering that geometry at all. But what I want to do is I want to get things pulled apart so that in the next one, we can get the axles out and the axles weighed and see what rear, mid, and front axles weigh as they are now, and then see what front, mid, and rear axles are once they're assembled in the full racing regalia, because that's all unsprung weight. Axle weight is unsprung weight. That front axle is going to be really heavy, really heavy, and it's an X3300, so I think we'll be able to manage. Also, here's a debate that I'm going to be going on with myself, because we're going to need to do some scaling. I'm going to leave, like I said, we're going to work from a process of start with a lot, end with a little. We're going to work on where the battery is going to go. We usually run a big Adventure 4300. I would like to stick with the Adventure 4300, but an J-Concepts Anvil is a good bit smaller than the double Lloyd that we used to have on here. So I don't know if the 4300 is going to fit up in this particular area, because I don't think there's going to be that much of the rig left. We will have a void, because this will sit right about there. So from here to where the servo is, there's just going to be nothing. So it is quite possible, and likely while we're at it, that I will fabricate some kind of a tray that goes right here, and the battery will go right there. That's on the same side as the motor. Big battery and big motor on the same side. We don't know. That is stuff that we'll have to figure out as we get to it. So what I need to do is I need to make a bunch more marks on this storyboard about where everything needs to mount, particularly things like upper link mount positions, which I almost forgot. That side, passenger side and driver's side, because we won't have, all of these tabs are going to get cut off the skid. We're not going to use those. We're just going to use these mounting holes. So I got to do thought work, which will lead hopefully to less future guesswork. This will be all marked up and written on when you see it, after just like a little, and then you'll know sort of where we're going. And then I will prepare myself mentally to make those cuts into aluminum. We arrive at a point where we think we have all of the pertinent numbers from the vehicle. Shock, I've decided to operate in increments of 5, save for the measurement of the panhard. The panhard was 82 millimeters from base at full droop, and remember, we're building at full droop. So we're looking at a piece of aluminum that we need to go up. I like to go about 10 millimeters over. So the center shock hole is going to be at 95 millimeters above the base instead of 98. And then we're going to go, just for extra clearances, we're going to go 15 millimeters over the top of that. So we're going to cut a piece of aluminum, because we figure the bumper will probably actually be in about the same. No, we need the body. And as I said, we're hoping for the anvil. The anvil is what I want. So long as, and the fingers are, and the fingers are crossed right now. Where are we at? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Let's go right here. Just get it right there. Yeah, probably honestly be right about there. So in reality, the front rail is going to be even shorter. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be tucked in. So I'm not going to want the hook, because if we do the hook, the bumper is going to hit the tie rod. So that's about where the body's going to sit. So we need a rule. Okay, so far we've used this guy and this guy and this guy. And because I had it over here for exhibition of why you should own a combination square, I used that guy. We didn't grab the Mitutoyo because it was buried. Otherwise, I would have been using this one because it just has easy to read measurements. And we didn't use the 14-inch. But none of our current participants are long enough to determine how long of a blank we have to cut out. So we have to go up to the next step, the artist's loft, 91 centimeter. It's a yardstick. It's a yardstick. So we're going to look at something that's about, we can just do 23 inches long, I think. So what did I say? 95 and 5 and 10. 110 millimeters, aka, well, that's 4 1/4. That's right in 4 1/4 inches. Maybe we should just go to 4 1/2 because we only have to cut out one in that size. When we make the second link, so we're basically making this chassis plate one big solid thing, and then we drill holes in. I'm getting way ahead of myself. We drill holes in it before we do anything else. Because like I will mount the skid to the side of the big plank because then we will know where do we need to cut. Right? And when we just cut, we cut to fit. Then we'll know where the tires go. We'll know where these little spars go to hold the links. All I wanted to know was that the body was going to cover the motor. And it looks like it's going to be pretty close. I don't particularly want to have a cutout in the back of the body for the motor to come out of, so we might scooch this back even a little bit more because there's so little of it. It's really not gonna. When we have full steer this way, I'd rather not hit here. I don't think we really have any worry up here. There's not a lot to that body. But let's operate under the assumption that it's going to go somewhere right about there. Then we've got these guys, which line up there. So we'll see how the rails go. We might leave 4 holes. That way it'll give us something to bolt, as long as they don't interfere with the existing link holes, because where are they at? So they'd be right there. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Probably just crop these off right there. It will be really nice to have something to mount the electronics to and the receiver box and all of that stuff. And yeah, we can just crop it off there, chop it off there, use about 2/3 of this. I have 2 of them that are brand new that were never used. They line up with the holes on there. That'll be nice. It'll give the body something to sit on. We can also do a mount on the back to something to hold the back of the body on. I've made no considerations at all to what the shape of the chassis is going to be. Are we going to square the edges? Are we going to make it look like everybody else's? Are we going to make it look like something a little more angular, a little more mean? I don't know. We get there. Oh, when we cut that first piece, it's going to be angular and it's going to be mean. It's going to be a giant square of aluminum that is 4 1/2 by 23. See, I wrote it down. Blank. The storyboard, quite literally, no pun intended, it is just a board. 82, 95 to the shock, 75 to the front upper, 50 to the front lower, 50 to the mid lower, 65 to the mid upper. They basically have the same split. There's that little split. Same gapping, same measurement. I like that. 95 to the shock, 55 to the rearmost upper, which is 5 millimeters higher. All of it is 5 millimeters higher. My brain would do it the other way and think this one would be the lower one and this one would be the higher one, but I'm not going to mess with their work. And the shock at 95 again. And then we're going to have a bunch of aluminum. We're going to start off with a big old plank, and then we're going to cut it way down. So let's not get any more schmutz on this than we have to. Because now we pull off lots of screws. That's a lock nut. Just for sake of maintaining some of my fleeting sanity, I'm just throwing all of the fasteners into that bin. We will reuse quite a lot. Why I wanted to get to here. The reason we're heading in this direction today is I wanted to find out, this is all removed weight. Get it? None of the plastics are going back on. So what do all these plastics weigh? Well, plastics in the bumpers. We can throw the bumpers in with the plastics. This one will be a little trickier because it has the panhard attached. And now you'll find that there's not really a lot to one of these things once you start removing the fenders. A lot of M3x10s, I will tell you that. And now that we're not going to have the little hook on the front of the chassis. Oh yeah, panhard. All I need to know is the vertical height. Like the spanning on it, what mount we use is going to be determined by where the front axle lands. So we have the marks on the other side of the board. They're not entirely important because we know everything is going to move back because the links are closer together. Oh, you know what would be easier? I was going to pick the rig up and then I remembered why I left it on the board in the first place. So losing lockers is going to save weight. We're going to save a lot of weight. I feel like the plastics are not going to be nearly as much weight, but sprung is sprung. And I'm trying to think. I'm running through. What sprung weight is going on that isn't already there? And I don't think there is any. These are bittersweet moments here. But a rig is its name. It is who it is. We can take it apart and the spirit will remain. Jolly Green went through iterations. Many rigs have gone through iterations. You're gonna have a whole... I mean, if you just, like I've alluded to before, you cut the sliders down a bit. You put a body like this on it as it sits now. You know, you crop those until this fits, right? Your performance is already going way up, you know. You take away that width, you take away that height, but if we're going to do it, we are going to do it. It's going to, these last couple is where it really starts coming apart. We're going to have quite minimal plastics. Really. Skid, sliders, and we will get through a sufficient portion of this in this installment. That in the next installment, we're going to get into fabrication. We're going to cut rails. Yeah, this was a good idea. I'm glad that my inner woodworker, oh my God, that's still so heavy. There was one thing I wanted to get out of today. I want to know what a pair of TRX6 rails weigh. Because we know that a pair of TRX4 rails are heavier than one would possibly anticipate, as when you replace them with carbon fiber, the vehicle loses like half a pound. So what are two 50-52 aluminum rails going to weigh? relative to this mass. Yeah, I don't think anything else is. I don't think anything else is attached. No. Oh, it is impressive. I mean, it is a thing. It is a real thing there. There's a real thing there. And it will join the piles of other stock pieces removed in favor of whatever pieces felt right on the day. So someday, there's nothing saying we want to end up building another TRX-6. The ideas are already rushing through my head. You know, a TRX-6, a MIAS-RX-6. What about we find somebody to 3D print us a third member from the metal, and we put 3 MIAS front portal axles under all of this chassis stuff. 3 10 Pro axles under this and get a really wild TRX-6. Did I miss one? No. Yeah. All right. It is official. And as I say, there's always some element of the bittersweet where you're like, man, what once was shall never again be. We will rebirth him. That actually, I looked up at the monitor and I saw that visage, and it kind of made me sad a little bit. It's still so heavy. There's so much. It's really occurring to me how much of the weight of this is Axe 3300. And I thought about it. Don't think I didn't. I thought we can leave the TRX4 gearbox. We can go way down in KV. We can go to an Outrunner or something. We can go to a smaller Fusion. There's any number of things we can do. And then I said no half measures. The lockers, because I had to power bodge this together to get lockers for 2 axles on here, because the Traxxas has discontinued the locker part for the TRX-6. You can't find it. Oh, and I looked. So the rear locker mechanism was never really very effective. And by that, I mean I just left the rear axle locked all the time. So we are going to dispense with that. I believe that it's actually captive. I think I had to assemble this through that part. Yeah, it's through a drilled hole. I wonder if I can get this apart. I want to write down about 4 or 5 numbers, and then I will see you on your way. We'll do it like that. We'll do full. My brain, it kind of remembered. There's a screw from the bottom. There's a screw from the bottom. Okay, there's the servo. We can just, that's a ball, so we can just pop that off. We should be close to getting the front axle off. Okay, that's down. That's down. Just held in by lockers at this point. We'll take care of the axles in a future installment, as one would expect. Okay, front axle clear. Yeah, that's a very dirty. That is a pretty heavy guy. It's a pretty heavy guy. So we're going to find the weight of the front axle assembly. Let's hope this is the new tape and not the old tape. It is. Okay, that goes in the plastics pile because that's not going back on. I need to get to the screw that is underneath that mount. It will be getting a receiver box back. It might be getting an element receiver box. I don't know if this one will fit onto that slider. It probably won't. Might as well nip any zip ties we run across, like that one, because the servo is not going to be messed with. Same servo is going back on. We won't get to that. We won't get to that. We can unplug that. We run telemetry on it. The telemetry will be omitted. I never pay attention to it at all. It just kind of bothers me instead. Let us toss the drive shafts at the same time. Oh yeah, that counts as a come off, so that's gonna go in the pile with it. That's gonna go in the pile with the plastics. And we'll keep the bumpers aside too. We can weigh it all. We can weigh it all as a mass. I just need to get to right there. So never feel bad for where we're going. We're going to end up someplace potentially even better. That's the goal. Oof. Ooh. Yeesh. Disaster narrowly averted there. The wires going to the micro servos for the diff locks were really quite pinched between the mount and the chassis rail. We got a little lucky right there. Is that free? That's not free. As I said, it's a lot of M3x10s, a whole lot. Middle axle is free. We might have to actually disassemble the whole locker. Nope. Got it. Got him. All right, so here is largely weight that will be continued over. Largely. Oh! I forgot. It's a TRX4. Don't need that. Don't need that. Also, as I go to take this apart, it reminds me why I had to hunt far and wide to get a 32 pitch spur that would fit onto that Stealth X, because we gotta run a big guy on there. I think that's a 12. We'll probably still be running a 12. Ooh, that really hurt. That spun right around on me. I either thread lock or I just went too bold on it. All right. So now we've got the TRX4 box. We've got. All we need to do is weigh this stuff. And it definitely occurred to me as I was pulling stuff apart that we're running an R7FG, 7-channel with telemetry, because he had a 2-speed and then the 2 for the lockers and then steering and then throttle. And now we are going to have steering and throttle. And that's it. So probably going to get an R6 receiver. He could honestly use an R4 because he's going to, this is a 2-channel guy now. 2-channel guy. I was curious. It doesn't matter because we don't have a choice. We are committed to the Axe 550 at 366 grams. Did I say 366? Because I meant 368. All right, and now we're going to go in the order that I put things down on the board. Rearmost axle. Make sure we're all up. This part I didn't think through well enough. 328. I get the idea. It might not that much. I feel like that one's going to go up. I just don't know how much. And that is with the links. So we'll be sure to weigh the other one with the links. Mid-axle, which feels heavier. Nobody touching? Nobody touching. 380. It would feel heavier. The links are longer. But I think that the front axle is going to dwarf both of these. Yeah. Yeah. 753. Which means it was 708 for the mid and the rear. So the front and the front axle weighs more than the mid axle and the rear axle put together. The Stealth X without the motor was the case that they gave me, 187. This is the TRX 4 box. Okay. I feel like we have to take the two drive shaft bits off to be completely fair. And the lockers really should go in with the weight of the axles. We just add the lock, split the weight of the locker unit and throw it on the axles. But it's sprung, so we can't do that. No. The locker weight and the 2-speed weight goes with the gearbox because it's like a raft. It's all together. So are we coming down from 187? That's 293 grams. We're going to lose so much weight. We're going to lose so much sprung weight. The issue now is with these guys, and let me dig. There's the one out of the package. With those guys and these guys, I would love to stay under 10 pounds. So it's really going to come out to like this pile of stuff. How much are we saving on that? Because we're definitely putting weight on. We know we're putting on well over a pound in rotating. Again, Axe 3300, a pound of rotating is nothing. Is absolutely nothing to that absolute beast of a motor. And I do happen to have an R4 FG over there. I've done this before. We need something very long and slender to set these on because they will not balance. And we'll see how the scale manages. Should be all right. Two TRX 6 rails weigh 337 grams. For those out there, geez, 3/4 of a pound. 12 ounces. So 6 ounces per rail. Yeah. 6 ounces per rail. I would be genuinely surprised if when we're done and we have 2 rails, if both rails weigh 6 ounces. I would say they're probably going to be between 4 and 5 because we are using 1/8 inch 5052 aluminum. We're not going full carbon or anything here. That would be cost prohibitive. So we'll try to build ourselves a little raft of plastics because nothing in my hands is going back on this vehicle. It's going to be, some of it will be replaced, but most of it won't. That should have gone on gearbox weight. That's part of the gearbox. That should have also gone on gearbox weight. That's part of the gearbox. And that's going to add a bunch of weight right there. 0.794 pounds, also known as 360 grams. It's like every component group, every bundle of stuff, 360 grams is some element of 300 grams. I know that I weighed them, but I didn't write down the bumpers. So we'll see if we can. Close enough. Front and rear bumpers, 262. Those numbers are not important to anyone other than me, because the weight we arrive at, whatever we end up at, is what we end up at. There's only so much we can do. I need to keep, and like I'm neglecting to weigh little stuff like this. We're going to look at that more in terms of final weight. And I do want to get a reasonable impression of individual component weights, because sprung to unsprung was never great on Jolly Green. He was toting a lot of mass, and the goal is to move that mass. Basically, we only want the mass either in these or attached to these. And we're going to get rid of the cables. We're going to get rid of little grams here and there. We will replace what needs to be replaced. And we will hope, certainly, I'm going to get that anvil on there. We're going to fit an anvil on this because I want this guy to look super low and really not that long. I don't want him to look appreciably much longer than like a full length, like a full fendered, full bumpered body. That's what I want. I want him to be the even angrier Caterpillar. And there's always, so you're saying there's a chance? There's always a chance that we're going to come in under the weight. And then we can like throw a driver in it or something. Go crazy. Why not? Go full comp and then throw weight back at it. Deep woods? Probably. Deep woods? Not absolutely. We might get light to a point where they don't work. We'll make no decisions on the inserts nor the tires until he is all together. Could be 6 comp pins. I have no idea standing here right now what are going to be the wheel and tire. Could be deep woods. Do I have 6 tusks? Yes. Do I have, actually have more. Do I have 6 canyon trails? We have way more canyon trails than that. Would I have to order just a single pair of tires to have a full 6x set of insert tire of your choice here? Yeah, probably. Landmines, rock blocks, MTZs, probably half a dozen more tires to add to that. But we'll get to that when we get to that. In the next, we're going to, I think we'll start by getting these cleaned up, torn down, and refilled, re-greased, and all that stuff. How much of that I'll document, I have no idea. We'll get to that. We'll get those Racing housings assembled. We'll cut our first big blank. We'll start drilling holes in it, and we'll work our way on the process towards a very low, very light, very slinky 6x, which is a strange thing to think of. We'll get the shocks put together. I don't know if I'll turn hats or find hats or order element hardware for them. I don't know exactly how that's going to go. I'm just taking this nice and easy is how we're going to do it, because there's no rush. We'll get to cutting when we get to cutting, and I will see you in that one. I'll thank you for being in this one. Hit me up in the comments below in between now and when we meet again. Please, one and all, do your very best. Have a good night, everybody. We will see you again here from the canyon with whatever we're doing on that day.